It's another day at Helping Hands Street Ministry in downtown Hamilton, Ontario. With one of the highest rates of poverty in the province, the need in Steeltown is great. That's why any outreach offering to help is welcomed.
Everybody's friendly here, and almost everybody respects everybody, and that. So it's a real comforting place to come.
It's nice to interact with all the people down here, to be deliberate. I mean, our faith is not just something we do on Sundays, it's something we act out. So it's our daily life. So if I can share that with the people that come in here, then that's what I want to do.
They provide an excellent service. They look after a lot of people that would otherwise go without. And, more than just providing clothing and coffee, it's a community meeting center.
This meeting center came out of one woman's desire to give back and an intimate knowledge of what it's like to be in need.
I was a single mom at 17, a young mother, obviously, on what they called mother's allowance, which is welfare. And I used clothing banks and food banks. I had to. I did work a few jobs too, but I couldn't make enough for the necessities of life, and I mismanaged my money as well.
Helen Norris started Helping Hands Street Ministry 7 years ago.
I remember standing in the food bank lines, and I remember proving how poor I was each time I had to do that, and being grateful for the help, but the demeaning process of kind of reminding yourself that you've made such a mess.
But Helen says she still remembers a day in the midst of that mess when one woman dared to see past it and speak hope into her life. It happened to be at a Salvation Army Christmas event.
This one woman who took me by the hand, and for some reason, I know now it was of God, didn't at the time, that she looked at me right in the eye, which was so personal and so intimate to me. And she said, your life's not always going to be like this. And at the time that she said it, I was very flippant. I was a very bitter young woman. And I said, lady, you don't know my life. Just give me my stuff. And now, when God floods that memory into your heart now, I realize that she was a messenger from God and planted a seed somewhere that took 10 years later to set in place. But
that seed took some time to grow, but during those dark days, as Helen struggled to provide for herself and her daughter, she recalls one day getting so frustrated at the system that she said something to her daughter she didn't realize would later come to fruition.
I didn't like the treatment that I would sometimes get at the social service office, and, just again, being reminded constantly that you were there almost as, as a beggar needing something. And I remember leaving one day from the social service office and saying to Fiona, one day we're going to win the lottery. And we're just going to give stuff to people, and it doesn't matter who they are. And it's not going to matter. And we're going to do that one day. And I didn't know, I at the time, I certainly wouldn't have articulated that was some sort of, prophecy or whatever. It was really just my anger and not even, the frustration.
Things started to change for her and her daughter. Helen got married and had her second daughter, Hannah. And even though it looked like she now had the perfect life, according to her, things were far from that.
And I was feeling my worst at that time, in fact, suicidal in my depression, and couldn't figure out why. I felt like my life was in a bigger mess than it was before. And it all comes down from my story that I just didn't know that I had value. I didn't know who I was. That almost killed me. And it almost killed our family. And we were 5 years into our marriage and about to get a divorce and lose it all, so.
Preparing to become a single mother again, Helen went looking for work, not knowing the woman she would meet that day would change her life forever.
And I needed to have a job, so I went and, applied to be a receptionist at a long-term care facility in town, and I ended up in the wrong interview. But through that process, was constantly intervened in that interview by a crazy Christian girl who I thought was nuts. I ended up landing a full-time job, and I ended up working on a unit with a crazy, tattooed, bleach blonde Christian girl who wouldn't give up on me. And she introduced me to Jesus and saved my life.
That crazy Christian girl took her to a Joyce Meyer conference where Helen says her life turned around.
Went home and had to beg my husband not to divorce me. I had to ask my children to forgive me. I was 30 years old, and I had made a lot of mess in my life and the lives of other people.
But with the burden of repairing a family already in pieces, she also had a new burden: to share the gospel with whomever she could.
I said to my friend, "We need to tell people about Jesus." And she said, "Yeah, I know." I said, No, we need to tell the people that I know. My friends that, the girls that were working the street to make extra money, the drug dealers and the users that were my neighbors, the people that aren't going to be invited to Joyce Meyer's. We need to go and tell them. And she said, okay. She said when she was a kid, they didn't have a lot of food at their home sometimes, so she knew where the soup truck was that the Salvation Army went on their route. And she says, why don't we just go there and we can bring some blankets for the homeless? And I said, yeah, let's do that.
Slowly, this little outreach started to grow, and even with a few bumps in the road, Helen was determined to keep going.
We started running out of clothes. I was taking Tom's clothes, which was probably not a good idea at the time because, he's still not so sure about what's going on here. And so we had a clothing drive at the park through the newspaper, and hundreds of people came to support a ministry. I have no idea what's even going on at this point. But we have people show up at our house, 4 people on Friday, because it was our house that had clothes in it and our driveway that we filled bins on.
But as the clothing drive started to grow, Tom and Helen realized a permanent place was needed. So with $1,500 in their savings account, they found a space for $700 a month. With their first 2 months covered, this became the new home for Helping Hands Street Ministry.
So we told people about it, our volunteer group, and the next week we had enough money for 4 to 6 months worth of rent written to us.
Now, 7 years later, Helping Hands has been able to help, on average, 75 people a day, handing out free clothing and simply creating a sense of belonging here in the Hamilton downtown core.
The space is filled with clothing, but I know that if we opened up the next time and there was nothing left, people will still come. They're coming for things that they need, but they're really coming for the space to feel a part of a family, to have a cup of coffee, to do what we do when we go to Starbucks with our friends. They want to feel a part of something. They want someone to ask about their day. I want someone to ask me about my day. And, any program that's running here now has only been developed because we've asked our friends down here, what do they want? Is there a need that you have? What would you like to do that's just fun? And let's see if we can do that for you. And yeah, that's why it's working. It's working because God has a vision for this area and the city.
Now, besides handing out clothes, HHSM offers a number of programs from a women's group, men's group, support group for women who work on the streets, and even a hair salon service once a month. So, Becky, why do you offer your services here once a month?
I just think it's a great way to give back, and God has blessed me, and it's nice to bless other people.
How do you see people change by getting a haircut and a new look for the day?
It really uplifts them, to see someone come in and yourself when you go to a salon, and it really does just kind of brighten your day. It's just kind of a random, simple thing that I can do and to bless other people.
She did it before. It was just cutting layers, and I just wanted something different today.
Yeah.
And new, and I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you always come here for Becky to do your hair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that good? Do you like that? Yeah.
And for Helen, this is what Helping Hands is all about. And she says she finds joy in knowing that God took the word she spoke to her daughter all those years ago and brought it into existence.
Every day that I come here, I'm amazed that I'm here. I'm amazed that God puts me in some form or fashion in charge of his space, and that he thinks enough of me in spite of my brokenness to put me here every day. And I'm never not shocked by it, which I'm really glad about.
In Hamilton, Ontario, Magdalene John, 100 Huntley Street.